Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be filming the mid-year book tag. So I've seen Sarah Caroli do this. She did it last year and this year. And basically there's like a bunch of questions and you just answer them about the books that you've read so far this year. So as of the date I'm filming this, which is July 10th, I have read 40 books so far this year. So I'm like on track to hit my goal of 75 books. So I'm very excited about that. These are only based off the books that I've read this year so far. I'll give like a little synopsis why I chose that book for that question, and that's pretty much it. So we're just gonna get right into the video. So the first question is the best book that you've read so far this year. And without a doubt, this was like, I didn't even have to think about this. I knew immediately. Best book I've read this year, probably like one of my favorite books of all time, is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm sure you've heard about this book, read this book, whatever. I sobbed for the last 60 pages of this book. I did not want this book to end. I was so obsessed with it. The storyline is just so beautiful. There's so many good quotes in here. Like, I annotated so much of this book. I've given it to a couple friends since, and like they will send me pictures of my annotations and be like, this is so funny. But I want to reread this book again. I read it in January and I already want to read it again because it's so good. This is about Evelyn, and she's a super famous actress in like the 50s, 60s, and now she is like, I think she's like in her 80s or something, and she decides that she wants to have a memoir written about her. So she hires Monique. Monique's a journalist and she's not like super high up in her company. So everyone's kind of like, why Monique? Like, why does she need to be the one to write it? But Evelyn insists the only way she'll do this memoir is if Monique's the one to write it. So Monique comes, visits her, and Evelyn talks about her life and kind of gives her life story. And she was known, she had 7 husbands, hence the name. And the book is broken down by each of the husbands. So it's kind of like an era in her life. So it kind of like flashes between like being in Evelyn's time and like what was going on in her life, but then also flashes to Monique's life and what's going on in her life. And she's trying to figure out why Evelyn is insisting that she writes it. You find out in the end. I sobbed so much during this book. Evelyn was known for being beautiful. She was sexualized from like a very young age. So there's a lot of like super like feminist talk in here, which I loved. And it's just such a beautiful book. I cannot recommend it enough. Please, 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 if you have not read this book, please read it. The next question is the best sequel that you have read this year. And I really haven't read like very many series or books that are like sequels. I've read a few like companion novels, but none that are like specific series. I do want to read more. I have a whole list in my phone of like series that I want to read because I feel like there's so many good series out there, and I always hear people talking about like the super popular ones, and I really want to read them, but haven't gotten around to any of them yet. But one series that I did read, it's only 2 books right now. I think she's maybe coming out with a third, I'm not sure. But this is When in Rome is the first book, and then the second book is Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. I really, really enjoyed this book. I liked this one better than When in Rome, which I know a lot of people, it's kind of flipped. They liked When in Rome better. This is about Annie and Will, and Annie's the younger sister of the male interest in When in Rome, and Will is the bodyguard of Amelia from When in Rome. Annie is like super sweet, innocent, not very good at dating. She basically asks Will, who is known as kind of like a bad boy. He always goes on dates, but he doesn't want anything like serious or anything. Basically, she asks Will to help her like learn how to date, be better at dating, all that kind of stuff. And of course, they form this little relationship and this bond, and it's just so cute. Like, it's such an easy read. If you're looking for like an easy summer read, I highly recommend. I do like that you get a little bit of the characters from When in Rome in here as well. There's a lot of carryover, especially like because these are both small town, you get a lot of like the townspeople, which is just like a very cute aesthetic that I really like. I really enjoyed this book. I would highly recommend it. Like I said, I do want to get more into series the second half of the year though, because I really didn't read very many. The next question is new release that you haven't read yet but really want to. I think as of the date that I'm filming this book is coming out either today or tomorrow. I think tomorrow maybe. But it is Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. I actually just got it for my book of the month for this month, so I should be getting it soon. But I love Catherine Center's writing. I remember reading her book, How to Walk Away, like years and years and years ago, and was obsessed with it. And then when I kind of got back into reading, like the end of last year into this year, I remembered and I was like, oh, I need to read more of her books. So I then read Things You Save in a Fire and Happiness for Beginners, and I was just obsessed. Like, her writing is so good. It's so easy. It's fast paced. It's right into the story, which I love. I don't like when books have this whole like big build up and it takes a while to like get into the plot. I like when the plot just like starts right away. I have yet to read her book, The Bodyguard. That is like on my want to read this month. So hopefully I will get to that. But Hello Stranger is her new book that is coming out. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know much of what it's about, but I know that if she wrote it, I'm gonna read it. The next question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I feel like the majority of books always tend to come out like beginning of the year, summertime, but there is one book that's coming out this fall. I think it's coming out in October, maybe September, October, is the follow-up to If You Had Been With Me, and it's If Only I Had Told Her by Laura Nolan. I loved If You Had Been With Me. It's a YA, Finney and Autumn, and they have been best friends since they were really little. They kind of had a falling out in like early high school. They were like in different friend groups. He was more popular. She was a little bit of like, not weird, but she was just like not in a very popular group and everything. They kind of had a falling out. But Autumn had some stuff happen and kind of her and Finney rekindled because of that. And then something really tragic happens. I read that book and it left me like just staring at the wall after because I was just in such disbelief. Like, you kind of know what happens at the beginning, but you grow so close to the characters throughout the book that when it happens at the end, you just like, oh, your heart just shatters. So the new book that's coming out is from Finney's point of view, because the first book is all from Autumn's point of view. So now this is from Finney's point of view. And I'm so intrigued to see like his point of view and see how the story differs from how he told it. And I just know that it's going to shatter my heart in the same way that If He Had Been With Me did. The next question is the book that was the biggest surprise. And I feel like this could be taken in a lot of ways. This could be like biggest surprise, like you thought you were gonna love it and then you didn't, or it could be one that you thought that you weren't gonna like as much and then ended up loving it. And I'm kind of in between. The reason Daisy Jones and the Six is my biggest surprise is because, like I said, I just read Seven Husbands and I'd read Malibu Rising back in the fall of last year and was obsessed. Like, absolutely love Taylor Jenkins Reid writing, heard so many good things about this book, so I knew when I got into it that I was gonna be obsessed. And the writing style is so cool. If you've read it, it's basically written like interview style. So you see here, like it says the name and then what they said, the name, what they said, all that stuff. So I really loved this writing style and I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about it, but I really loved it. But I think the biggest surprise for me was that I didn't get that 5-star feeling until like the very, very end. Like the last 30 pages is what took it from a 4-star to a 5-star for me. And I have given every Taylor Jenkins Reid book that I've read 5 stars. So I just assumed this was gonna be an easy 5-star. Like I knew probably a quarter of the way into Seven Husbands that was gonna be a 5-star for me. So it was just kind of a shock to me that it took me a while to get into this. And I do kind of wish that I listened to the audiobook because everyone says that the audiobook is so much better because you actually hear their voices and it feels more like a real like documentary. If you don't know, Daisy Jones and the Six is about the band Daisy Jones and the Six. They were popular in the 60s and 70s, I think. So it is an interview of them like years and years later, I think like 20, 30 years down the road. And all of them are talking about how the band formed and all the issues they had and all that kind of stuff. And then obviously there's a big surprise of like who is interviewing them and why they're doing this interview. And I really did love this book. I almost like want to go back and reread it because now that I know more of what happened, I feel like I'll appreciate the storyline more, if that makes sense. But yeah, this was just the biggest surprise for me. I still gave it 5 stars. I still absolutely adore this book, but it was kind of shocking to me that it took me so far into the book to like get that 5-star feeling. The next question is a favorite new author, and that's an author that is either new to you or is a debut author this year. And my favorite that I have like fallen in love with this year is Miss Allie Hazelwood. So I've only read 2 of her books so far this year, but I know she just released the 3rd in this kind of like companion novel series, which is Love Theoretically, and I'm really excited to read it. Her books are just so easy to read. They flow super well. I love the characters. I love the tropes that she includes, and I just know that like if I read a book of hers, I'm just gonna like it. They're not like 5 stars for me necessarily. They're not like, oh my God, I'm absolutely obsessed, but I just know I'm gonna enjoy it and it's gonna be a fun, easy read. So I read Love on the Brain at the beginning of this year, and I actually liked this one a lot more than Love Hypothesis. Everyone I know talks about how much they were obsessed with Love Hypothesis, and I did still really like it, but it wasn't quite a 5-star for me. It was more a 4-star. But I did really love Love on the Brain. This one was just so fun. It was so cute. I can't remember if I don't think I rated it 5 stars. I think it was maybe like a 4 or a 4.5. Like I said, she writes these kind of like science-y novels, science-y like romance novels. Sometimes the science stuff does go over my head, I'm not gonna lie, but I still think they're super fun. I'm so excited to read Love Theoretically. I've heard such good things about it already, and I'm just excited to see like more from her. I know she has another kind of like mini series. I think they're called the Steminist novels. So I want to get into those as well because, like I said, I just really enjoy her writing. Next question is newest fictional crush, and it has to be Nathan from Icebreaker. Oh my God, he is just such the perfect book boyfriend. Like, I'm obsessed with him. I just loved this book in general because it was so easy to read. I loved the found family and the team aspect because you get the perspective of both Nathan and Anastasia, and there's like a really good found family from Nathan's team. She becomes like friends with all of them, and her best friend dates one of the hockey players, and it's just so fun. It's such an easy read. Also, Nathan is like so obsessed with Anastasia, and it's just so good. Like the way he talks about her, the way he treats her. She does pair ice skating, and when her partner gets injured, he like takes his time and like helps her, and it's just I just need someone like Nathan in my life because this book is just so perfect. Next one is a book that made you cry, and like I said, I did cry reading Seven Husbands, and it was such a beautiful book, but I have never sobbed quite as hard as I did reading Right Side by Kim Holden. This book, like, be in a good mental state to read this book because it will shatter you in ways you can't even like, I was broken after this book, okay? I could not pick up a book for like 3 days after because I was just so heartbroken over these characters. I swear I have like tear stains on these pages. I would say probably the second half of the book. Like once you figure out what's going on and why Kate is the way that she is and like what's going on, because at the beginning of the book, basically she moves away from her childhood best friend and she goes to college, and you kind of get these like little inklings and you think you're like, okay, I think I understand what's going on. But then once you find out and like it's confirmed that what you think is potentially happening is happening, it is just the second half of the book is just so heartbreaking. I can't like say what it is without giving it away, but the nickname that her childhood best friend gave her is Brightside because she's always just so positive no matter what happens in life. She's had so many like terrible things happen to her, and she just always has such like a good attitude. And I just literally thinking about this book, I'm gonna cry. Be in a state where you know you're gonna sob. Like I literally had to sit here and remind myself, I was like, it's just fiction, because like I was a mess reading this book. Next up is a book that made you happy. The title is fitting for this, but this is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I was so excited to have a new Emily Henry release. I'm obsessed with her books. I've read all of them, and every time like she announces she's releasing a new book, I just get so excited because I just know that I'm gonna be obsessed with it. She is without a doubt probably my favorite author ever. Her books are just like, I can't even describe the way that her books make me feel. She makes her characters so real. You feel like you know them. The quotes of her, like the quotes, especially in this book, are just, oh my God. They're just so good. This is about Wynn and Harriet, and basically they have been engaged for 10 years and they broke off the engagement and are now hiding it from their friends while they're at this like lake house that their friends always go to every summer. None of their friends know that they've broken off the engagement. It happened a couple months earlier. None of their friends know, and they're trying to hide it. And also you get the flashbacks of them all meeting in college and becoming friends, her and Wynn starting to date, and it's just the conversations about like adult friendships and growing up and how friendships are going to change, especially from college and moving forward. I'm at a point in my life where I just graduated college a year ago and just trying to navigate those friendships and keeping them alive when you're all now living in different places and everything's very different. It did like make me a little sad and a little like nostalgic almost, but it also made me so happy because at the end of the book, they're still all friends, and it just like goes to show that even when things happen and you have these like different life experiences, you always have this thing to come back to. I just adored this book. Emily Henry always knows what she's doing and already anticipating and waiting for her next release. The next question is the most beautiful book that you read this year. And I feel like that could be taken in a couple ways. It could be the most beautiful cover, beautiful writing, all that kind of stuff. This book kind of falls into both, I will say. So this is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And first of all, the cover of this book is just so beautiful. There's all these little, like, it almost looks like airplane windows into different life events happening. Once you read the book, the cover makes even more sense, and it's just so beautiful. This is about Nora, and she has a lot going on in her life, and she feels like she hasn't really succeeded in life, and she ends up trying to unalive herself. Now she's gotten in this in-between period of life and death, and she's in the Midnight Library. Basically, she gets to try on all these different lives. So she can, like, select a book, and it's, you know, if she had chosen one little thing different, and it could be something different from like going to a different coffee shop that day to like a major life decision, like choosing a different college or something. All these little life decisions show how her life could be different had she done even the smallest of things differently. I think it's just such an overall message of how like beautiful and fragile life is, and how grateful, one, you should be for every day, but also, you know, to not regret decisions that you've made in the past, because they have made you and put you in the position that you are today. So I just think the writing of this book is so beautiful. There's so many incredible quotes, and I highly, highly recommend reading this book. The last question is books that you need to read by the end of the year. And I'm sitting over here looking at my like TBR shelf, my physical TBR shelf. Obviously, I have so many books marked on my Goodreads as TBR, and I just feel like there's so many I want to read. I literally can't decide. I do have the Chestnut Springs series by Elsie Silver that I really, really want to get into because I've heard so many good things about it. I have the first book of the Addicted series, and I really want to dive into the Addicted series, even though it is a very large series and it is a little intimidating to me. I do really, really want to read it. I also want to get into more like fantasy books. I'm kind of like a romance girl. I've started to dabble in some like mystery thrillers, but I haven't really like dived into fantasy yet. So do really want to read some good fantasies. Everyone talked about and was obsessed with Fourth Wing and is still obsessed, so maybe that's one that I'll dive into. But I just feel like there's so many books that I want to read and just not enough time, because if I could just sit on my couch all day and read books, I gladly would. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got some good recommendations. If you have any recommendations that you feel like I need to read, please let me know down below, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.